Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Everything indicates that the crisis in the ruling coalition will come to a head imminently. The leader of the Solidarity Poland party, Zbigniew Ziobro, heard from Jarosław Kaczyński, Law and Justice Party chairman, about the conditions under which the coalition might be continued. The crisis began last week when Ziobro's party voted against a new animal protection law proposed by the Law and Justice Party and strongly supported by Kaczyński. The party also said it would not back new legislation that gives immunity to state officials who disregarded the law while taking steps to counter the coronavirus pandemic. A move seen to shield Ziobro's political rival, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, from responsibility for decisions some see as controversial, taken in relation to the holding of the presidential election during the COVID epidemic. In reality, the minority party is seeking a greater role in the coalition. Another meeting of the Law and Justice officials on the future of the United Right is planned for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yesterday's statement by Minister Ziobro at two press conferences shows that he wants to reach out and hopes for an agreement. The crisis of the United Right coalition continues. Last night, the chairman of the Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczyński, met the leader of Solidarity Poland, Zbigniew Ziobro, face to face. After nearly 4 hours of negotiations, we learned the conditions set by the Law and Justice Party chairman. Unofficially, the position of National Prosecutor Bogdan Święczkowski, Zbigniew Ziobro's right hand, must be given up. Acceptance by Ziobro of the Impunity Plus law and a step back in the government's reconstruction efforts are other conditions that the coalition partner would have to meet, giving the United Right a chance to survive. If we are to have a situation in which there is a group of skirmishers attacking the government, taking up the authority of other ministers, challenging other ministers, and all that happens within one coalition, or they do not vote on bills that are quite obvious, such as the Animal Protection Act, it is obvious that the choice of minority government is much better. According to political scientist Dr. Andrzej ANUSZ, there will be no split in the United Right. Everything indicates that the ruling coalition will remain. I think that a certain regrouping of forces will take place. For example, the role of the largest coalition party of Law and Justice will increase. The role of the smaller coalition partners of Solidarity Poland and the Agreement Party will be reduced. After this breakdown of trust between the parties and what will hatch out of these talks today, even if it will not result in early elections, although it seems to me that this will not be the end of it, it never excludes in the next 3 years that it might be something like patching a hole in the sail in the open sea. At the same time, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki met Jarosław Gowin, the head of the coalition party Agreement. The talks were about the government reshuffle, which was suspended, after which the parties of Zbigniew Ziobro and Jarosław Gowin spoke out against the Animal Protection Act. Gowin will return to the cabinet, and I think that Deputy Prime Minister Emilewicz may stay in the government, but in a completely different capacity. However, there will be such a clear structure that the heads of the two coalition parties would also be ministers of Mateusz Morawiecki's government. If politicians see that these appetites are starting to become so great that they take dishes from this table for the host, then they will think for a second time how they will put something on this table. And today, the point is to control Solidarity Poland without creating such a game and decorum and such a story that we all love each other here as in one family. It will be a completely different relationship. And although it may not end with early elections now, who knows what will happen in a year or two. As Ryszard Terlecki, the head of the Law and Justice Parliamentary Club, announced, further talks are planned. Another Law and Justice leadership meeting on the future of the United Right will take place on Wednesday. In November, the Law and Justice Congress will be called, during which the party's governing bodies will be elected for a new term.
A coal miners' strike, supported by the Solidarity Trade Union, began yesterday in several mines in the Silesian Voivodeship. The reason for this strike is the fear of many coal miners that the acceleration of energy transformation, forced by the European Union, may lead to the end of the mining industry. In response, the government has sent a delegation to meet union leaders for talks. Polish President Andrzej Duda has already spoken to the head of Solidarity, Piotr Duda, to discuss the situation in the Silesian mines. After the meeting, Duda said on Twitter that a just transformation introduced through social dialogue is the key. Two Liberal journalists, Tomasz and Jacek Zakowski, today won a lawsuit at the second instance against Tomasz Sakiewicz, editor-in-chief of Gazeta Polska. 3 years ago, Gazeta Polska published an article on lustration, that is, the removal from public life of those associated with the communist dictatorship. The article was illustrated with photographs of Lisz and Zakowski, who demanded damages of 120,000 zloty from the editor of the magazine. The district court in Warsaw reduced the compensation to 20,000 zloty, but did not hear the defendant during the hearing.
The sentence was passed, but it is difficult to say that it was passed in court, because the court hears all parties. The court did not want to hear me, although I was the defendant. It is a global phenomenon that the court does not want to hear the defendant. Instead of my hearing, the court accepted a piece published in the virtualnemedia.pl portal, and did not even ask me whether I actually said this. Even journalists of Virtual Media were amazed that they too were not asked to prove this statement genuine. After all, this statement may have been outdated. It could have confirmed another matter. The court decided that since I have spoken somewhere about the subject, it does not need to question me anymore. At the same time, however, the court did examine Zakowski and would have examined Lisz if he had appeared. As he did not appear, it was impossible to examine him. This is an absolute scandal when it comes to the way the case is handled, so the verdict is no longer surprising. There is one surprise, however. The judge wrote the sentence during the break that took 5 minutes, and then read it for an hour. One should admit that our courts are working very fast, since I do not believe that an honest judge had a verdict prepared before the trial began. That would mean she broke the law.
The scientific team of the Search and Identification Bureau of the Institute of National Remembrance today found the remains of more victims of the communist terror at the NKVD and security office's former place of torture and execution in Warsaw's Praga district.
Today is a happy day, a groundbreaking day. Archaeologists from the Search and Identification Bureau of the Institute of National Remembrance discovered a mass grave at the old criminal investigative prison of the NKVD, later called Toledo, located at 6 Namisławska Street in Warsaw. They have been working at this site since June this year. We have a mass grave containing the remains of several people. The remains of at least 4 people were thrown into one grave next to the prison wall. The total body count is currently 17 here in the Toledo prison, and they are certainly not the last. Our work will continue throughout October. The head of the Bureau, Professor Krzysztof SZWAGRZYK, gave us more insight into the results of the work. We knew that we would find remains here, that it would be only a matter of time. We did not know when it would happen or where exactly. But when we found the remains of 3 men thrown into one grave by the prison wall, the same as in the Łączka part of the Powański cemetery, we said, yes, this is it. They chose this corner of the Toledo prison to bury the victims. For now, we don't know how many there will be. It is here that the NKVD and Communist Security Office tortured and murdered members of the Polish underground resistance. History is not forgotten. It has not faded away, but it is still very important to many Poles and is very much alive, because some of these scars have not yet healed. The bodies of the murdered soldiers of the Home Army were covered in calcium and buried under a wall. As Professor SZWAGRZYK said, Poland is coming back for its own.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.